Stephen Wiltshire is a young man with autism, a lifelong brain disorder that affects every aspect of his life.
He was a very anxious child. He screamed quite a lot and cried quite a lot.
Stephen was locked in an autistic world, unable to speak, but his whole life changed when he discovered drawing.
I draw buildings and places and landscapes and cityscapes.
Stephen's a savant, one of only 100 individuals in the world recognized as having extraordinary talent that emerges from autism.
This is him, this is what he needs to do. It's driven by something deep within him.
Stephen's obsession with buildings and his talent was so unusual that millions tuned in to marvel at his extraordinary skills.
When he is drawing, I think he's just responding to something greater beyond himself.
The child with autism who intrigued us 20 years ago is now a young man. He set himself a seemingly impossible challenge to draw a 4-metre panorama of London entirely from memory.
I love the airy view of London, the city of London skyline.
Stephen has only 15 minutes to memorise 7 square miles of the city.
The big panoramic drawings is something I don't think anyone else could do.
And only 5 days to draw the scene onto this canvas, a feat that will push him to his limits. Stephen Wiltshire, an artist with autism, has an extraordinary ability to look at a building and sketch it from memory. Stephen has never drawn Hampton Court Palace before. He has no camera, no pen and paper. Amazingly, all he needs is 10 minutes to memorise the building.
I'm drawing a Hampton Court Palace. It's a very, very historical, very nice agent, and then sticking back in time.
Stephen's astonishing memory is matched by the speed of his pen. He effortlessly recollects the exact number of palace windows, turrets, and gargoyles.
So this is Hampton Court Palace. It's a scene from the memory I've just drawn.
This picture has taken Stephen less than an hour to complete. His skills as an artist working from memory are unmatched anywhere in the world. He is unique. Stephen's drawing skills have baffled experts for years. He's come to Cambridge to meet Professor Simon Baron-Cohen, the country's leading expert in autism.
That's a merchant's, that's a residential 43-storey tower.
What will the professor make of Stephen's incredible artistic ability?
Does that mean 43 floors?
Yeah.
OK. The way you've drawn it, are there 43 floors in there?
Yeah.
When you first looked at it, again, were you counting when you looked at how many floors it had?
Yeah.
Do you just do that automatically, counting the number of windows or the number of objects in a scene?
Sometimes they're from the scene.
Yeah.
And then from photographs.
Right. Because, you know, a lot of people walk around and they look at the world, but they don't spend their time counting. But you seem to be naturally counting, which is a very quantitative, a very precise way of seeing the world, you know, where you're sort of carving up the world into objects and getting the number exactly right.
Yeah.
So it's a gift. What we're seeing within one person is a lot of different skills all coming together at a very high level. Spatial ability, memory, this remarkable attention to detail. And, you know, it may be that some people would have some of the skills, but not all of them. In Stephen, they're all coming together, and, you know, he must be one in a million.
With only 100 recognised savants in the world today, Stephen is part of an exclusive club.
They said to me, because you're a genius, yeah, because I was very proud and very pleased about all my work.
But Stephen's relaxed and confident demeanour today is in stark contrast with when he was a child.
We shall shortly be arriving at King's Cross with the service will be terminated.
As a toddler, Stephen was locked in an autistic world. He was mute, only communicating through screaming fits.
My earliest memories of Stephen, certainly as he became more vocal as a youngster, was highly animated. I don't think disruptive is the right word, but certainly the outbursts caused a lot of concern. The best way to describe those outbursts would be sort of temper tantrums, for want of a better description. Keeping in mind, nothing would trigger it. It was just something that would just happen. At that time, in the mid-70s, we didn't understand what autism was.
Children with autism, as far as we understand it, cannot communicate as well as other children simply because there's a difference in wiring in the brain, and they just don't have the facility that others have to learn language, pick up on language, right from the beginning.
Stephen was diagnosed with autism 30 years ago. Today, as then, children with autism find speaking and social interaction difficult. Without the language skills that we all take for granted, children with autism suffer high levels of stress.
When Stephen first came here, he was a very anxious child. He came here at 4. He screamed quite a lot and cried quite a lot. You haven't got the language. You can't say to the child, Stephen, why are you upset? Tell me. You just have to try and work it out. And clearly, someone very cleverly worked out that the calming factor for Stephen was drawing.
I calm myself down, because then I could do drawing. That becomes sensible.
By using drawing to pacify a stressed Stephen, the school had stumbled upon something that would change his life.
One Sunday, I noticed Stephen in another world, literally on our living room floor, doing a drawing. It was the front facade of Selfridges. It was absolutely beautiful. Certainly not to the standard that he is now, but for a youngster, how old was he? 6 years old at the time? That's what I could still say in my mind.
Started drawing some London landmarks from memory. I've seen pictures and from TV.
Drawing was the key that unlocked Stephen's autistic world. But how did a boy with a love of buildings become one of the world's most famous autistic savants? Stephen Wiltshire's incredible artistic ability was revealed to the world when he was just 11. The boy with autism became the country's best-known child artist. His talent was first discovered at Queen's Mill Special Needs School.
Hello, my name's Stephen Wiltshire. Nice to meet you.
I remember.
22 years later, he's returning to the school. He's bringing with him a print of a picture he drew while at Queen's Mill.
25 years ago.
Oh, wow.
That's the Natural History Museum. I was at the Queen's Mill School.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's absolutely beautiful. We shall treasure that and frame it and put it on the wall, because you're one of our most famous pupils, aren't you? Well, actually, you are the most famous pupil.
Yeah,
so.
very famous.
Very famous, exactly. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, pleasure.
That's wonderful.
When Stephen was a pupil here, his future did not look bright. So how did a mute boy with an involuntary tic transform into the Stephen we see today?
Sometimes I didn't speak to anybody, because I said to the teacher, paper. Just said the word paper. And then the teachers came to a piece of paper and then grabbed a crayon and started to draw.
You thought he was just scribbling, but when the end result, that's what I can't get over with Stephen.
We didn't really make a huge issue of it, did we? But we did always make sure he had plenty of paper and that to draw with, and he spent most of his days doing it.
That opened a whole new world for Stephen, where he was this boy that was sort of appeared to be within himself. He was flourishing. The communication just came with the drawings.
Look at the church. That's the Royal Lancaster Hotel.
Over 20 years, I pointed out the landmarks and look, the church, the Royal Lancaster Hotel and the Royal Albert Hall. I come back to school and I draw it from the memory.
When Stephen realised that he could depict a controlled world onto a piece of paper, it allowed him to find control in his life.
There was a shift, and whenever I would see him, I would sense a gradual growth in confidence and self-esteem.
Stephen's remarkable talent helped him develop as a boy, but how unique was he?
It is important that parents understand that not every child with autism has a wonderful gift like Stephen has, because it would be cruel to hope for that, for every parent to hope for that. I mean, I would always say that every one of our children has enormous strengths, but it's rare for children to have such an amazing talent as Stephen.
Hello, kids. Hello, how are you? How are you all doing?
Say hello.
Hello, hello.
This is Tim.
Hello, Tim.
Hello.
Stephen, how are you doing? You good? Are you being a good boy?
Yes.
All the time, aren't you?
Yes.
Do you want to join us? Or are you supposed to be at the other end?
I want to join you.
Let's see then. Do you remember playing with Play-Doh when you were at school?
Yeah, the plasticine.
Yeah. Do you still use it? Or have you grown out of it now?
Yeah, just growing up a bit now.
When Stephen was a pupil here, he had limited vocabulary and couldn't maintain eye contact.
Sounds good.
Much has changed in 22 years.
Are you making pot?
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
It's nice that after all these years we're seeing him as an adult and how he has achieved for himself.
Very proud of you. You've done really good. Very good.
Yeah.
What did you used to draw? Can you remember?
St Paul's Cathedral, the Royal Albert Hall, Tower Bridge.
Was I there?
You was there.
I was there.
And you're Oliver.
And I'm Pat Oliver, yes.
Stephen is very exceptional, very exceptional. The ability to draw to such an extent that he can make a living out of it, and a very successful living, is highly unusual for someone who is significantly affected by autism.
After leaving Queen's Mill School, Stephen's career took off. The boy whose autism could have severely limited his horizons was traveling the world. His unique artistic ability brought him a life that most other teenagers could only dream of.
He's covered more of the globe than I have.
I've been to New York,
All the famous buildings in Europe.
Moscow and Leningrad, Amsterdam.
There was the trip to Japan.
San Francisco, LA, Arizona, Chicago and Washington.
And I know where he's been because I can just look at the books, see the drawings, and immediately have a connection. He has joined a very elite club of great artists, no question about it. Forget about the condition, he's in the zone now.
Stephen and his pens may have covered half the globe, but he's at his happiest drawing his home city of London, where every new building and development thrills him.
It's a very nice place, nice reflections and nice skyline. This is a very beautiful place.
Stephen's rare ability to draw with such precision has led him to be called a savant. There are less than 100 recognized savants in the world today, individuals with extraordinary mental abilities like those portrayed in the famous movie Rain Man.
We define a savant as someone who is an individual with an island of talent. There are some that capture the sort of public's attention because the juxtaposition of their talent against their disability is very remarkable to people.
There are autistic savants who are musical or maths geniuses. Stephen is the world's most famous artistic savant, with 4 books and thousands of drawings to his name.
This is now finished, and this is going to be very brilliant, because I'm famous.
We should remember that when we're thinking about his art as a way of teaching us about autism as a whole, that he is in some way, Stephen is in some ways quite exceptional. What started off as a strong interest, and which clinically would have been called an obsession, but which he's been able to use, almost his passport into an independent life.
For many young people with autism, the thought of independent travel may provoke fear and upset. For Stephen to draw the buildings he loves, he has had to learn to travel on public transport alone.
If I want to go out and do sketching outside, if I travel around London to do sketching for fun.
It is extraordinary that he's learnt to travel by himself, because he will no doubt have a high level of anxiety of any change, anything different, anything that might change.
He has inspired confidence in us and his family to let him go off and do his own thing, navigate life, and develop the resources required to be independent for himself. And really, it just proves, in spite of the condition, there are little pockets where he can feel alive for himself and not feel constrained by anything or anyone. And I think it's wonderful. It's freedom.
Yeah, good.
Another place that Stephen travels to in London by himself is his weekly piano lesson.
Up here. Let's see if you can play those that speed.
Each new skill that Stephen learns boosts his confidence.
You see how easy that is? That's not so hard.
Not so hard.
It gets hard when you try to put that bit with it.
Yeah.
When I first met Stephen, he was agreeable, but he's now he's developed into a real person, I guess you could say. I mean, he was a real person then, obviously, but he's much more outgoing now than he was when I first met him. His language problems have improved a great deal. When we used to do songs a while back, he always had a lot of trouble singing the lyrics. But now that's not so much of a problem for him.
Darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Yeah.
He's made strides out of all recognition of what he was before.
Stephen's drawings, books, and unique story have made him world famous. He's been awarded an MBE, and today has his own prestigious gallery near Trafalgar Square, which attracts tourists and Londoners alike.
I love people coming up to, I said, and customers said to me, "Hello, how are you?" And I said, "I'm fine, thank you. I'm Stephen, nice to meet you." It was a great. I was very kind to the people. I was very proud.
I defy anyone to look at his pieces and not come away moved or touched or inspired.
Stephen's gallery shows the breadth of his work. He's moved from just pen and ink to try different techniques, learnt as part of his art degree.
He finished the degree, and he did well in the degree, and put on a good show of work. And then, I think, because he was really interested in printmaking and enjoyed etching, it made sense for him to come back here and work here part-time.
Well, I like to came here for fun, doing some print making some lithographs.
As a part-time student, Stephen can use all parts of the college, but unsurprisingly, it's the print room that draws him in.
Yeah, very pleased.
The process itself has not changed for like hundreds of years, and we do it the same in this room as they've done it for hundreds of years. I think that's what kind of appeals to Stephen, is this kind of consistency. You know, he's going to come into the room and the process is not going to change. I think that's kind of good for Stephen.
Bye, Chris.
This love of consistency and no change is characteristic of autism.
People with autism like to go into things very deeply, and do the same things over and over again, so quite repetitive behaviour. And often they resist change in their environment, so become very strongly wedded to routines and get quite upset when there's an unexpected change.
Stephen has built routine into his life around his gallery. He gets his lunch at the same sandwich shop at precisely 1:30 every day.
I'm fine, thank you, not too bad.
Interacting in a public space, making a request, may seem a simple task.
Just a tiny, small amount.
But for a person with autism, it would be challenging.
And a bit of salt, please.
Salt, no pepper?
No pepper, just salt. That's it, that's fine.
For Stephen, the sandwich shop is part of his daily routine, a routine that gives him confidence and allows him to function in this world.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Steve.
With certain autistic traits still clear in Stephen's behaviour, how much has he really changed?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You probably don't remember me.
Linda Pring.
Yes,
Hi,
but
Linda.
we have met before.
Yeah.
On lots of occasions.
Professor Linda Pring, who tested Stephen when he was younger, has come to see how he's progressed.
Do I know that store? It's in South
Just
London?
you
made it up?
Made it up.
All right. I used to get you to draw things like, when you were very young, draw things like wine glasses. Don't know if you remember, I used to give you some tests and things when you were really little. I love all of your work, but I particularly like work that has...
very detailed.
Yes, and that's right, and where
Takes
it has...
lots of time.
Yes.
And lots of hard work to do, because they're nicely detailed and very neat.
But you haven't got your cars in here, not the
no.
American cars.
No, I didn't bring today. I've left it at home.
Have you?
I got some about 65 American classic cars, Matchbox or Hot Wheels, and from the toy shop or Woolworths.
Right. I think most boys seem to like cars, as far as I know. And still your favourite is drawing buildings?
Yeah. I like buildings and city landscape, New York, Chicago, LA, and
done a lot of
and
travel.
Also London in England.
Yeah. I think Stephen is extraordinary. He's developed a lot. He's developed in many ways. We can see someone who's intellectually, socially, and even in his art, you can see how he's extended and beginning to reach his full potential. And it's lovely to see.
Stephen pushes himself constantly to realise his potential. He wants to draw his favourite city from memory on the biggest scale he has ever attempted, after just a 15-minute helicopter ride over the Thames. But will he succeed? Stephen Wiltshire is one of the world's most famous autistic savants. He's also one of the most successful. He is regularly commissioned to draw pieces for clients which he travels around London to promote. For a person with autism, meeting new people can be stressful and challenging.
Stephen, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, I'm Stephen Wiltshire.
Yes, I thought he was.
Unusually, Stephen has learned how to conduct himself in this kind of situation. He's here with Sarah Buck, a structural engineer, to see his commissioned drawing.
Wow. That was excellent.
That's what we think, absolutely excellent. All framed up. I think the skyline's absolutely stunning, isn't it?
Very stunning. How it looks in there, like our imagination.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it looks like a cityscape, doesn't it?
Cityscapes, like in a futuristic style.
Yeah, that's right. And the scale, so you've got the height of this one is in proportion to the bridge here, yes? Which is your favourite building, Stephen?
I like the gherkin. It's a little shape as like an egg or a cigar.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Stephen's drawings have given him access to worlds where his obsession with buildings can be indulged. Sarah has brought him to meet the structural engineer of his favourite building, the Gherkin.
Stephen, can I introduce Dominic to you?
Hi, Dominic. I'm Stephen Wiltshire.
Hello. It's really good to meet you,
Yeah,
Stephen.
nice to meet you.
Hello.
I've got some prints of I did at City Guilds Art School. That's the Gherkin building in the City of London. It takes a long time, a day.
A day?
Yeah.
What, you drew that in a day?
Yeah, I drew that and got plenty of time.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very nicely detailed.
Do you like the shape?
Yeah.
This is one of the drawings that we did for the building, which is made in a computer model.
Wow.
And you can see you've got the shape very well. Can you see this one? I see some cranes working there.
Yeah. They're going to build a new skyline.
Yeah.
The Heron Tower.
That's right.
How do you know what's going to be built, Stephen? How do you find out about that?
I saw it in the papers
Right.
and magazines.
You make sure you know what's coming along.
Yeah.
We can speculate as to why Stephen chose buildings as his first topic of drawing, in that buildings stay the same every time you look at them.
I like her being on the top of a tower, because again the views are so excellent and it's so great.
People with autism like sameness, they like repetition, and they like patterns in the environment.
I imagine he must have an amazing ability just to photograph something in his head, but it must have stemmed from an interest in the building blocks, if you like, that make a building. And once again, this enormous attention to detail.
Why not music, okay? Why not mathematics or knowing the date on the day of a specific year 100 years ago? It's just one of those weird things. I'm glad it's buildings, actually, because I think there's something very special about the way he can put everything into perspective and just bring it all together and inspire us.
Lack of imagination is one of the symptoms of autism. So is Stephen's work technical drawing, or is it creative?
It's sometimes said that people with autism are very good at the technical aspects of understanding, whether it's in music or in drawing, but that they may not be creative, so that they may see the patterns and understand the lawful relationships, but they may not be generating anything novel. But there are plenty of examples in Stephen's work of originality coming in, of taking those patterns and rearranging them in a novel way.
He's not robotic at all. He isn't a human camera. He is definitely putting in his own agenda.
There is a passion in his work, and you can see it in the expressiveness of the drawings.
Stephen's extraordinary talent is recognised by those who design and construct buildings.
Hi, Stephen.
How are you?
Very well, thanks. Are you?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, well, welcome to Foster and Partners.
Stephen has been invited by architect Narinder Sagu to see the practice's work.
And this is something you'll recognise.
Oh yeah, I like this whole thing. That's City of London skyline.
Yeah.
For Stephen, being surrounded by models of buildings is like a child in a sweet shop. There is just too much to savour.
And
that's the Barbican Towers.
Yeah. We use these kind of models to, when we're designing new buildings, to see what they'll look like in the skyline. And
that's nice.
You recognise this one?
That British Museum.
Yeah, that's
that's BT Tower.
BT Tower, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And what's that one?
This is a project called Central Markets. Do you recognise that building?
Oh yeah, that's this is in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Hong Kong Bank. And
This
that's
is,
the old Wembley Stadium.
That's right, yes. The difference of before and after and the scale difference.
Yeah. Wow. This looks very nice. Very nice. That was excellent.
When Stephen wants to draw, he doesn't stand on ceremony. He just does it.
Stephen's actually 1 year older than me, and I remember seeing him on TV when I was younger, and being a young
young artist myself, I think Stephen quite easily falls in my list of people who are inspirational to me. Even. He's a real artist. I mean, the way he's composing the drawing as he's going along and getting the scale so accurate at the same time is something that not many people can do without years of practice and learning. But even if he does decide to rub it all out once he's done it.
Well, I'm trying to get things done.
I love the fact that you can rub out the whole drawing and start again and say, I'd like to rephrase what I'm saying in a way, but with a pencil or a pen is something that, we should all have. I always think that, drawing is a powerful language, a language which is just like the verbal language we use or written language that we use, and something that is universal and, you can use anywhere in the world. And we all have it somewhere in our brains. It's just that some have it unlocked to certain degrees and some have it kind of hidden away. Wonderful.
Yeah. Very pleased. Very nice. And he's very nice. He's very talented. He designs buildings. And so this is the model of it being done.
If you ever need to come back and draw this again, you're welcome any time.
Yeah, I love to.
Stephen enjoyed his time at Foster and Partners. He did, however, struggle with completing a sketch of a small model of London.
Hi, Carla, how are you?
He now has a day's grace to relax and prepare himself for a much bigger challenge, a 4-metre panorama of London.
I'm going to go for a helicopter ride around London.
Fantastic.
They're going to be very fantastic, doing a panorama, and then I'm going to take 5 days to do it, and then got to be very detailed.
Stephen is not fazed by the daunting task ahead. He takes everything in his stride.
Like it?
Yeah, very new. Just like a new man now.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you. Don't forget to take your sweets.
Yep.
Bye, Steve.
Bye.
Today, Stephen's going to attempt to realise his dream.
I've never done a 4-metre panorama of London before. I'm very happy about it and very exciting.
This helicopter ride is the first step, a 15-minute flight down the Thames without paper to sketch or make notes. All Stephen has are his eyes to take in London and his memory to hold it. Will this be enough?
I draw it by looking at about 10 or 15 minutes, and it gets into my brain by ear and my head, and then draw it from the memory.
People use the term photographic memory in a lay fashion, but more technically there is something called eidetic memory, where people have a very accurate image of what they've just seen, which lasts beyond the usual few seconds that most of us have it for.
I can see everything by my head, and I know it very, very well. It was excellent and fun. I see the St Paul's Cathedral, the London skyline, the Gherkin, Tower 42. I could see Tower Bridge and Canary Wharf.
An hour later, Stephen arrives at City Hall, ready to translate his view of London from his memory to canvas. Amazingly, he believes he can complete the panorama in just 5 days.
So I'm going to do the panorama of London from Tower Bridge to Canary Wharf.
I think he's discovered that a really large canvas sets him a slightly different problem to consider with space. And so I think it's in a way more fun for him to do something new, but still within the domain that he's very good at.
His art has certainly developed a lot in terms of confidence and skill with which he does it. And of course, the big panoramic drawings is something I don't think anyone else could do.
I think it all comes down to Stephen's desire to express himself in a grander way. These big pieces expand him and his identity. It also expands his vision. And the very nature of these very panoramic views would suggest to me that here is someone that has a bigger view of things.
But is it possible for a large-scale drawing of Stephen's favourite city to emerge from these shaky and seemingly random lines?
That's the council flats in that other Tower Hamlets. It's 5 o'clock now. I'm going to pack up and ready to go.
How do you get it so detailed?
The details are very detailed. I can remember them quite very well. Number of some windows and everything.
How old was you when you started becoming an artist?
About 5 years old. From a long time ago when I was a boy.
Do you like football?
No, I don't like sports at all. Going well. It's getting all well as much as possible. Lots of information, lots of details.
He does enter another world. Absolute stillness is the word I would use to describe Stephen as he becomes the artist. He's just responding to something greater beyond himself.
Really, I have no idea how he can look at the world and then represent it on paper in this brilliant, solid way that he does.
For 4 days, the public marvel at Stephen's panorama drawn from memory. Some even check how accurate his buildings are.
My colleague came across a picture of Canary Wharf. He counted 16 across. So we came to see if he actually had 16 windows, and yeah, he does. Spot on.
Stephen's younger visitors are less concerned with the drawing's details.
Yeah, that's lovely. What's this one, sorry?
This is Tower 42, is known as a NatWest building.
Okay.
Mary has brought this class of 8-year-olds from Stephen's old school to see him at work.
I'm going to touch it.
That's St. Maryak's.
Oh, that's the proper name for it.
The proper name is known as AKA Gherkin.
I don't know how to express it. It's wonderful, beautiful, and he's such a clever boy.
Mary's so busy talking.
Just so lovely to have been part of it. Really is amazing.
When Stephen was 8, he was drawing detailed pictures. These children with autism do not have Stephen's Savant ability, but they face the same problems of communication and social interaction that Stephen has successfully learned to overcome.
Bye, little one. Bye, little one. Bye. Bye, Mary.
Stephen has been drawing for over 25 hours. He has used 11 pens and 3 pencils in his quest to complete his panorama, which covers 7 square miles of the capital. But will it stand up to scrutiny? Experts will pass judgment on the panorama that he's drawn from memory.
Hi, Stephen. Hello.
Hi, I'm Jason.
Hi, Jason.
I'm the photographer. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
Got some amazing...
Jason Hawkes photographs London frequently from the air, often following the same route that Stephen took.
When most people go up over London, even though they live in London, often they get really lost. You know, they can't even tell whether they're on the South Bank or the North Bank. So the fact that he's here and he's picked up this building here, which they're actually demolishing at the minute, was a building my dad used to work in. It used to be Claremont Benson's years ago. The fact he's picked up on that and he's got it really, you know, I noticed which building it was immediately. It's just incredible.
The photographer has found an amazing accuracy in Stephen's panorama. Now it's the architect's turn to assess it.
He's got this extraordinary way of picking up the kind of the landmarks and then the sub-landmarks and then, you know, the third and fourth level of detail that we might miss, which I think is very, very clever.
But what will the structural engineer responsible for the form of buildings think of the panorama?
What I find fascinating is from this position you're seeing the city in a particular angle and you're seeing Canary Wharf at a different angle, but you can pick out the street plans, and once you look at it you can orientate yourself and start to get your memories of the city into that location. The proportions of the buildings are very accurate in terms of, you know, St Moriac's being slightly lower than Tower 42, the Commercial Union building at halfway up, and St Paul's. So in terms of the heights and the Barbican behind, it all seems completely accurate to me over at Canary Wharf as well. It's quite remarkable.
The experts are astounded by Stephen's panorama. But it's Michael, who's known Stephen since he was born, who takes him out of the detail to see his achievement in the whole.
You can see London.
Wow. Yeah, that's very extraordinary.
I can only imagine this is exactly how you see it as well.
Yes.
I had a picture of it in my mind, and now that I've seen it, it's surpassed even my expectations. Is there anything that can surpass it? I don't think so. And I think this is a one of a kind.
Suddenly is now finished, and I'm very thrilled, and then when I like the panorama of London, I'll feel happy and very pleased.
He's unique. There's no one else like him doing what he does, and I think that gives him a place in the art spectrum, which he fully deserves.
It's very, very difficult to weigh up which is the most important, his skill and ability in art or his ability to manage himself in life. And I suppose the life skills would be the most important. To look at a young man who was quite crippled by his autism in the very first instance, to see that transformation to a young man who has learned those important life skills and can achieve some measure of independence is very reassuring.
Stephen has come a long way since he was diagnosed with autism 30 years ago. His drawing skills have brought him a long, successful career, and with that has come the social and life skills so unexpected of people with autism. He truly is extraordinary.
As an autistic savant, he was blessed because the gift of artistry that he has helped him to define a very unique identity for himself. And that identity is a very solid, secure, approachable, agreeable human being, in spite of the challenges he faced.
I'm still artist and also keeps on working, make it even better.
There's a school in the local town that was built for 300 pupils, but with the children from the camp now attending as well, numbers have swelled to over 1,000. Everything is in short supply, even chairs.
People are complaining that the stomach is paining because of the beans. What, the grain is not okay.
But with the school so overcrowded, some parents are not bothering to send their children. A decision of which Anna strongly disapproves.